Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Q&A. I am Diane Southard, founder and CEO of Your DNA Guide and your host. And we are excited to just, spend a few minutes together answering some DNA questions. And if it's okay with you, I have some questions for you as well. So I hope that we can learn together today how to best serve each other in our efforts to find our family and document them. So there have been some questions that have been submitted in advance, so I have those ready. But if you came today with a question, feel free to put it there in the chat, and then I'll be kind of checking both spots, and we'll just kind of flow together and see how this all goes. So I'm just going to start pulling from the questions that I have, and then I'll hop back and forth between those of you who are here with us live. So our first question, if we have ancestry's matches of matches, can we trust that a less than 20 centimorgan match is a real match to us if they share more than 20 centimorgans with a mutual match? So just to catch everybody up here, in case you haven't heard a lot of what I like to say about small matches, I do recommend that when you're working with your DNA matches, you try to stay at that 20 centimorgan level or higher. It just gives you more confidence that this person actually has a real documentable relationship to you and isn't just someone who's there because you share the same population. So yes, you're right. I do usually draw that line at 20 centimorgans. But when you can see the shared matches of matches, which you can see at most of our DNA testing companies now, you can see how much DNA your matches are sharing with each other. It does allow you to break that rule a little bit. So in our shared matches course, we call it SMOMS, shared matches of matches. In the SMOMS course, what I teach is that you're first looking for people who belong to the same bubble group. So a bubble group is a group of individuals who are sharing 400 or more centimorgans with each other. So if you're looking at a 20 centimorgan match, but you can see that they have a match that's above 400 centimorgans to them, but that match is sharing less than 20 centimorgans with you, it's all good. Because those people are closely related to each other and likely represent the same relationship to you. And so you can use all of them in your research. So shared matches of matches does so many things for us. But yes, that is one of the things it does. It lets you explore some of those lower centimorgan matches in a more confident way. So all right, and this was an interesting question. Perhaps you've heard Ancestry has recently released something they're calling Ancestry Networks. And just to be clear, Ancestry Networks is not a DNA tool. It's a tool to help you see people who are around your ancestor, the network around your ancestor. So these people aren't necessarily genetically related to you. They're just in the life of your ancestor. And so they're asking, how do we use this with our DNA matches? So it's a totally separate kind of thing. I would use it more in the do genealogy step, or in the, hey, I see something I didn't expect in my DNA match list. Relationships aren't quite fitting. Maybe look around in the network for other people who may actually be genetically related that you didn't expect to be genetically related. So I'm still in the early stages of playing with this. So I am reserving the right to change my mind if I find a better use for it. But I did the other day, I was working with one of my private clients, and we were looking at the MyHeritage, and now I've forgotten the name of it. Guys, hold on while I look it up real quick so I don't get it wrong. It's the MyHeritage Cousin Finder. So the Cousin Finder is also not a DNA tool, but it's meant to help you identify cousins who are descendants of a particular line that you're researching. And so it's great because it's not limited to DNA, but it does also tell you if there are people who've taken a DNA test on that line. And so it's actually been really fun. And it was a really great discovery for my client and myself, because we were able, one, to see a couple people who did share DNA who were tested on the line that we were interested in. But kind of even better, we were able to find a bunch of people who haven't yet tested, but who could significantly impact her research if they were tested. And so we composed a little reach out email, and hopefully some of them will agree to test. And that could really help her research progress a lot. So that was really helpful. So if you haven't seen the MyHeritage Cousin Finder feature yet, I encourage you to go look at that. All right, let me just go take a quick look at our live comments. Mel says, love the SMOMS course. Thank you, Mel. It's actually my favorite. I know it's like having a favorite child. You really shouldn't do it, but I do. So it's fine. It's fine. Okay, John's asking this really relevant question about the 23andMe kit. I think you can, if you feel like you'd rather get a refund at this point, I would for sure contact them and ask them. I'm not sure what their refund policy is, but as far as it being a still viable working company, it is. So if you feel like you would like to get those upgraded results before whatever happens is going to happen, and have them for yourself and for those records, then feel free to just return the kit. They're still doing business as usual, but I do not know what their refund policy is. If someone does, feel free to post it here for John. Thanks, John, for asking that. Okay. Yeah, we have some comments in there about people who are trying to use the network. So thanks, guys, for chiming in there about your own experience. Okay, question here. Can ancestry DNA matches be searched by ethnicity? Unfortunately, no. And in fact, MyHeritage used to let us do that, and they don't anymore. So it has to do with privacy. It has to do with, trying to find that fine line between sharing too much and sharing not enough and all that. So no, you can't search by ethnicity, but there are some tools that help you kind of work around it. I mean, for each individual DNA match, you can look and compare your ethnicity, both at Ancestry and MyHeritage, and even at Family Tree DNA. You can compare yourself to one other person. So that's a start. Also at Ancestry, you can, in the ethnicity feature, you can sort essentially by parent, and you can see which side of your family the ethnicities have come from. And within that same tool, you can then compare the ethnicities of your matches, like more in bulk. So you could then like put 10 matches, I think it's 10, maybe it's only 8, and you put them in the tool, and then it will tell you who has which ethnicity. So it's not as nice or as easy or as simple as like clicking on a filter and having everybody show up that's from Norway or something, but it's the best we got. So it's still a really manual process, but given a half an hour, you could probably sift through many of the matches that you might be interested in. So yes and no, like no is the answer, but you can a little bit work around it if you want to. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys a question now, if that's okay with you. We're always developing new things. And so I'm just interested. Here's my first question for you. If you just want to put your answer in the chat, that would be great. What kind of format do you like your DNA education in? Do you like live classes? Do you want to watch something that's recorded so you can pause it or rewatch it? Or do you really need something that's written down? And when I say live classes, I mean kind of like this, like virtual live, but I'm also actually curious how many of you are interested in an actual in-person live event. I should have put that here on my list. So yeah, we just want to get a feel for what is it that how do you learn best or most? Okay, lots of you are commenting. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Everybody's like, everything, of course. Yeah, because I mean, I'm that way too. I really like to watch, but I like to hear, but reading is probably easiest for me to like comprehend something really hard. I have to probably read it. Yeah. Joyce, I'm interested in Joyce says she wants an index. I'm interested in what you mean by that. If you want to elaborate on that a little bit, I'm interested in what you mean. Yeah, recording is nice because it's hard to be there live, but thanks. You guys are all here live. That's fun. It's always nice. Okay, live with access to a recording. All right, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. All right, back to my questions here. Okay, so I think this question, what to do when there's no common surnames. Your great grandmother had 10 children with 3 men with different surnames. So anytime you have a situation like this where there are known half relationships, so you know this ancestor had multiple partners, then you know that there are half relationships, descendants that are half. And those are so valuable in DNA. So you have your line, right? Your partner and all of their descendants. But anyone who's a descendant of your ancestor with a different partner is gold, because all the DNA you share with that person came just from her. You don't have to worry about, we call it splitting your network. You don't have to do that because you don't have a partner that you have to split out, because all the DNA that you share with this match who's a descendant of her other partner or partners is amazingly good at just getting her line that you can research. Or if you're not researching her and you're researching your partner, you can at least use them to eliminate her and get rid of the matches that have to do with her, leaving you with those leftovers that we're always talking about. So having halves is like cause for celebration. I think, if I had my way and was going to design a world that was easy to use genetic genealogy in, everybody would have 10 kids and like 4 partners. And that would make it like so much easier, really, to do this kind of work. But, in general, that's not the way most people live. All right. And this is a good question. And what happens to the DNA when you die? So we actually have a blog post about what to do and how to be prepared. And we're actually going to be talking about this a little bit in study group this year, because it is a really important topic that you prepare your DNA to be passed on the same way you would pass on any other asset that you have. And so a couple of tips quickly. Number one, put it in your will that your DNA is going to be managed by your executor, for example. Or if you have an executor who's not interested in family history, but you have somebody else in your family who is, name that person. It gives that person so much power if something's going on with one of the testing companies or your DNA or whatever, because then they'll have all the rights just written down right there in that legal document. So add it to your will. Who has the rights to control what happens, not just to your DNA results or access to them, but to the physical sample itself? Who do you want to be in charge of that? Because when you pass away, no one's telling the testing company that you passed away. So your DNA is just sitting there like all the others. And so nothing's happening to it when you pass away. So the physical sample. Many of our DNA testing companies have a specific way you can pass down access within their platform. So I'm thinking specifically of family tree DNA. You just go into settings. There's actually a beneficiary tab. Just fill it out. And then family tree DNA has record and access to that. So it's a really important step to take, just as you're settling all of your other affairs, to settle this one as well. Because if your loved one passes away without doing this, it's really, really hard to get access for anybody. But in the end, it would have to be handled by your executor, as would any other asset. So yeah, take some steps and be prepared for that, because it is an inevitability. Yes. All right. Let's go see if there's anybody else that has a question. All right. Claudia's asking, when splitting a network, are you using the dot system and then sorting? And the answer is yes. We actually have another question from earlier about the dot system. So you can use this dot system at both Ancestry and MyHeritage. They have these inherent ways that you can label your matches. If you are at one of the other companies, you can still label your matches, but you have to do it kind of outside of the company. You do it like in a spreadsheet, like using the leads method or something like that. But yes, the dot system is meant to help you create groups of matches who are related to specific lines in your family tree. So yes, when I create a network, I use the shared matches tool. I give everybody a label. And then when I'm splitting the network, I add another label, and then I sort by the label. so that I get just the ones I want in my sorted list, and I begin to work with them. Okay? All right. Let's see, where else? All right, Mary's asking, what would you do about your 23andMe account right now? I actually posted something over in our new community. So here at Your DNA Guide, just in the last few weeks, we've launched a new community where you can join in the conversation about all things DNA. And it's a private community, so you have to, sign up with your email address to join us. But then there are lots of free things within the community, lots of resources, mini classes, things like that. But we also have just like an announcement/discussion board where you can ask questions of other people in the community. We've already seen people helping each other out. It's been actually super fun. But over there, I posted my thoughts about 23andMe, and I posted just a little video of me talking about it. But essentially, you guys know this, I'm an optimist. And I like to think positively about things because I figure it doesn't do me any good to think negatively. So for me, I feel like bankruptcy is a cry for help and a admission of past mistakes, maybe, but also I think it is a declaration of a desire to do better and to serve the community they started serving, and allowing the legal process to help them restructure is just a way to do that. So I don't think they're gone. I think they're working through some things, and they'll be back, stronger than ever to continue to help us. So I'm just in a holding pattern. I'm leaving everything that I have there. Of course, I always have my DNA downloaded. I have my raw data file, and I know how to get around inside 23andMe. So I know where to go if I wanted to. I'm like familiar with the process. So that's something you could work on. So we have some YouTube videos about how to navigate 23andMe. We also have the 23andMe tour, which fully helps you navigate it. But I'm just gonna hold. That's where I am. All right, let me see some of our other questions. Let me ask you another question. What DNA topics do you want to hear more about? So what kinds of things would really help you move forward in your research? What is it that you need to know? Just topic-wise, not even really specific your personal stories, but like, what are the topics that you're interested in learning about? So again, we're trying to create content that matters to you. And specifically thinking of this new circle community that we have, we want to make sure we're making things available to you. And of course, in planning for things like study groups. So study group is an ongoing membership that you can be a part of, and it's 2 classes a month. And so we're always planning for new study group classes. We're currently actually enrolling for our April classes right now. And so we're always on the lookout for what topics are going to be the most helpful for you. What I love about study group is we can address things that I don't usually get to talk about because they aren't super mainstream or worth speaking on stage at Roots Tech about or something. But they're still really important things that we need to discover. And so I love having study group there as a way to do that. So great. I see some topics coming in here. Barbara wants mitochondrial DNA. Guess what, Barbara? I have a secret. Watch for it in May. That's my secret. Mitochondrial DNA in May to celebrate mothers. All right, I see some shout outs for endogamy. So that's happening for sure. Endogamy is always something. Chromosome mapping and painting. We've been doing some of that with my private clients too. So I'm actually developing some ideas about that. So I'm glad to hear you guys are interested in that. Working with siblings and how to organize that. Yeah, Madeline, it can get overwhelming really fast, right? Unrelated clusters. Diane, I'm with you. Hi, Diane. Sorting paper research inherited from the parents, what you do and don't want to discard. And thanks for mentioning that even though we are so digitally focused, there's still a lot of stuff, right, that we have to get through and figure out what to do with. So that's helpful too. Organization, always a big topic. Drawing trees, proof standards. Perfect. Oh, hi, Maureen. Guys, do you know Maureen Taylor? She's amazing. She's the photo detective. If you haven't ever taken her courses or watched her speak, she's like a magician a little bit with pictures, and she can tell you so much about your ancestor's story just from looking at a picture. I love talking with her about this. But Maureen, good question. Do DNA kits expire? Technically, yes, but practically, no. I mean, right? It's like one of those things you have to put an expiration on it. Like, you have to say it expires, but it really doesn't. Like 10 years from now, it's the same thing. There's nothing expirational about it. I mean, the very like liquid that you have to then like put your swab into is meant to preserve. So like they say that there is, but and I don't know what that is. I think they say like 5 years or something, but honestly, I think they just have to say that. If you're feeling cautious or worried or nervous about it, I would just contact the company and be like, hey, I've had this thing for 5 years. Do you want to send me another one or what? So that's the way of things. See? Claudia took Maureen's class, guys. And she got 5 boxes of old family photos somewhat organized. Amazing. Way to go, Claudia. That's a big job. Love it. All right, let me go back to my other questions. Okay, we got this question. I wasn't exactly sure what direction we were headed in here, but the question is, what happens if DNA is showing you one thing, but records are showing something else? African, Caribbean people records are sometimes a mess. So I'm not really sure what you mean when you say DNA is showing you something. So there's 2 kinds of DNA results, right? You're going to get the DNA results that are ethnicity based, and they're telling you you're from a certain region or area. And then you've got your DNA matches. So in general, matching actual people is going to be a stronger indication of heritage than your ethnicity results. Now, ethnicity results are getting much better. They're getting so much better and so much more specific. But remember, they still are estimates, and the titles or labels that they're putting on them are sometimes misleading, not because they mean to be, but because you have to name the same place lots of different things, right? So when we're talking about these ancestry DNA, their migrations, and the MyHeritage groups, these are representing locations where your ancestors were in the last 200 to 300 years. Which means that for every spot on the map, there are multiple communities, multiple groups, right? So they can't just call it one thing because there's so many groups. And so they're going to give your group a name that may or may not resonate with your heritage. Does that make sense? So just don't let the name throw you. Like, look at the map and see the blob that tells you where on the map this particular group is from. But even then, again, just be careful how strictly you're interpreting ethnicity results as being connected to a record that you have, right? So, and yes, sometimes our genetic heritage is different than our genealogical heritage. And maybe that's what you're really asking is like, how do you know when that's the case, when your documented family is not your biological family? And often these are the kinds of indications that you have where you think that you have documents that your family comes from place A, but your DNA ethnicity results say place B. Now, be careful. But if your DNA matches have documented family trees to place B and you're thinking you're from place A, that's when you really need to dive in and investigate. Does that make sense? So yes, ethnicity is helpful and it can be a clue and an indication, but it's really in the DNA matches and in their documented family trees that you really want to focus on. So hopefully that was little bit helpful. All right, let's see. Sunny's book, Debbie, is called, dang it, something about church records. I'll think of it. And if I don't think of it, let me see. It's awesome. How to Find Your Family History in U.S. Church Records by Sunny Morton and her co-author, Harold Henderson. Okay. Let's see. Deborah, your question here. Oh, I just lost it. Hold on. Everything just kind of scrolled past me. There we go. Throughline suggests the person in my tree is the son of my fourth great-grandfather, but I thought he should be a grandson. Is there some way I can prove or disprove this with the matches that I have? So first of all, let's all remember what Throughline does. Throughline is going to look through your DNA matches, and then they're going to look at the trees of those matches and see if there's a connection. And then it's going to display that connection to you. Okay, so it means that whatever tree information is in Ancestry is the tree information you're going to see displayed in Throughline. So my number one question for you, Deborah, is that what the records say? Like, does that person, whoever is making that connection in that way, have records to support it? And do you have records to support it? The problem with a DNA connection this far back, you're going to be dealing with small amounts of DNA, and you're really trying to tell the difference between, like, let's see, Throughline's son of my fourth great-grandfather, grandson. Yeah, so you're looking at, fifth or sixth or seventh kinds of cousins, or fifth cousins once or twice removed. There's no way really right now to distinguish between those relationships using DNA. If we were closer, like much closer, like we were thinking second cousins, we could. If someone's the difference between a second cousin and a third cousin, we can 100% tell the difference. I should never say 100%. Scratch that from the record. We can more confidently tell the difference. Okay. But the farther back you get, the harder that is. But even if you're at the 2 times or even 3 times great-grandparent level and you're trying to distinguish between where exactly someone fits in a tree, are they at this generation or this one, which is what you're asking, you can use the strategy called Ask the Wife. That's what I call it. Because if this kid is actually the grandson, right, then we've got another person involved, a wife, a spouse, really. And so if there's a genetic connection to the spouse, then we can put him down here. If there's no genetic connection to the spouse, then he goes up here. But at this level where you're talking, you can't really even do that. It would be too hard to be sure. So you're a little bit stuck there. You could look at Y-DNA. If these are direct male lines, there's a small chance that a mutation has happened somewhere in there that could lead us to one conclusion or the other. But that's kind of a long shot, in all honesty. Probably the Y-DNA will be the same, and it won't help you. So it's kind of, unfortunately, unclear. How about that? All right. All right, let me look at some of the questions that we had before. Okay. Oh, looks like this one got cut off a little bit. She's trying to find a 3 times great-grandparent. Oh, that's right. I remember reading the rest of this. So she only has one DNA match who's not in her direct line that she thinks goes to this family, and she's wondering if she can use Watto. So remember, the What Are the Odds tool that is over on the DNA Painter website created by Johnny Pearl is a fantastic tool to use once you've reached a certain point in your research. Once you have a group of DNA matches who are all related back to the same common ancestor, and you want to know how are you related to this family, it's time for Watto. Because Watto allows you to build their family tree in the tool, and then you ask, hey, Watto, do I fit right here? Or how about down here or over here? Or could I be here? And Watto crunches all those centimorgan numbers for you and tells you, okay, it's like 21% likely you're right here, and it's only 5% likely you're down here, but it's 18% likely you're right here. And it helps you understand where you should start doing genealogy to see where you fit. But in this case, where she has one DNA match that's not on her line, because the key to Watto is you don't put people on your line in the tool at all. Okay? It's just you versus everybody else. So if you only have one everybody else, Watto is not going to be helpful. So I don't know how you found that one match, but theoretically there are more matches there in your match list. You just need to know how to find them. And so that's by following the plan that we teach here at Your DNA Guide, kind of guiding and directing you to find that particular person. Okay. All right. I have one last question for you. We've talked just a little bit about study group, and I just want to know how many of you are thinking about joining us. I'm actually super excited for this year. We're trying something different. This is our third year doing study group, and we've learned a lot, and I hope you've learned a lot. One of the things we've learned is kind of that perfect balance in an hour of instruction and hands-on learning. So every hour that we teach, there's a good balance of that. Here's what we're learning, and here's how to do it, and here's a chance for you to go and do it. And so that's my favorite part, because I'm a very hands-on learner. And so I love that about study group, that we found that kind of balance between telling you stuff you need to know and letting you go try it while we're right there to answer the questions that you have when you inevitably get stuck in the process. So I've loved that. Another thing we're adding this year is some guest lecturers. So we've got a really fantastic lineup of some of my very favorite people, including Judy Russell, Karen Stansbury, Rich Venezia, Cindy Engel, and we've asked them to take their expertise and twist it just a little bit to make sure that it's unique to study group and that it will have some kind of DNA application, because everything we teach in study group has to do with DNA. But as I was telling this, I taught a class at BYU this past week to some BYU students. And one of the girls after class was like, okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear that you can't ever use DNA in just to solve the mystery. Like, you always have to do genealogy. And I said, absolutely. And I said, in fact, where we say genetic genealogy, I think we should say genetic genealogy, because genealogy is such a huge part of our DNA work. And so in study group, we really lean into that. And so one of the classes I'm most excited about this year is we're teaching a class on how to understand location and migration and the records of that and how that applies to your DNA matches. And I'm super excited about that. So anyway, I just wanted to know if you'd heard about it this week. We've really been talking about it a lot, and if you were thinking about joining us in study group. And if you haven't, like, why not? Why aren't you joining us in study group this year? So it's super helpful to see. I've got a lot of lifetime members on the call. So fun. So glad to have you guys. Cool. Yeah, these are, I mean, yeah, I can see a lot of you saying, oh, I think it's a little bit expensive. And really, everybody has their own budget, obviously. And we really have tried to keep the price low. It's $34 a month. And I know it's like enticing to sign up and get the 12% off if you sign up for 12 months in advance, but you don't have to. It's just 12%. And $34 a month is maybe something that sounds a little more affordable than that full year price to you as well. But I'm so glad that so many of you are joining us. We've already had a couple people in our circle community commenting about the core concepts videos. So if you're part of study group already and you haven't had a chance to get into those, you'll definitely want to do that before we start up class in a couple of weeks. But okay, let's see. I think I have one more question that was submitted in advance. Oh no, we answered them all. Okay, let me see if there's one more question in here that we can answer before we head out. I'm not seeing a quick question right off, so we may just... Oh, here's a question. Thanks, Seth, for asking. So back in the early days of genetic genealogy, if you'll recall, so my timeline in all this is I was in college in 1999, and I started with the Sorensen Molecular Genealogy Foundation, which then turned into a company called GeneTree. And then the GeneTree started testing mitochondrial and Y-DNA. And we were direct to consumer, and we were doing testing. We had, website-based results and all the things. And then this partnership between this records company, Ancestry.com, and GeneTree/SMGF started happening. And in the transition period, you were able to take your Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA results from GeneTree and put them into Ancestry. And Ancestry was also offering Y-DNA testing and mitochondrial DNA testing, and we were the lab. GeneTree Sorensen Labs was the lab doing the testing to populate these results. This didn't happen for very long. Ancestry was not in the business of Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA testing for very long. Before autosomal DNA testing came on the market, they were like, we're jumping on that train, and they just dropped the Y and mitochondrial testing. It was a lot more expensive from a lab perspective and not as impactful from a genealogical perspective. I mean, we love Y and mitochondrial. They're awesome and are very impactful, but autosomal just is more actionable for most people. And so some of us have Y-DNA results at Ancestry, either that we tested directly with Ancestry or we ported over from GeneTree. So the answer, Seth, is no. Because those DNA samples, I don't, at the very least, are not currently accessible, if that makes sense. So I believe they are in a freezer somewhere in Ancestry's control, because they did purchase all of that stuff at that time. But it's outside their normal flow, and essentially anything outside the normal flow in a lab-based company is not going to do anything. So the answer is no, they're not going to go back and test that for autosomal, unfortunately, because so many of us do have samples in there from those early Y-DNA testing days that we would love to have autosomal on. But I can't see them doing it, even if the sample is available, which I'm not 100% sure it is. So that was a way back question, Seth. So thanks for that. All right, well, I'm going to let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your day. It's beautiful here in Utah. I'm going to go sit on the deck for a minute and pretend that it's not going to get cold tomorrow. And I'm so grateful for your input today. Thank you for answering my questions as I answered your questions. I'm always thinking, I'm always planning, I'm always trying to figure out what it is you need and what I can do to help you get there. So I appreciate your feedback so much. And we'll see you next time we decide to get together and chat. So thanks again.